Today is Thursday, Chavches Sivan Tovshin Ayin Gimel. It's actually the anniversary of the Rebbe and Rebbetzon's arrival to the United States in 1941, Tovshin Aleph. We are in Sefer Mamar Atem Nitzavim, or rather, Sefer Mamar Tovshin Yud Aleph Tovshin Yud Beis. We are in the Mamar of Shabbos Pashas Nitzavim, Chavches Elul Tovshin Yud Aleph. And we are on page Kuf Lamed Vov Ois Daled. We're up to chapter 4, Ois Daled. We're in the middle of learning about Oiros and Kalim, the divine celestial lights, emanations, energy, giving force, and Kalim, the divine vessels, the receptacles of that energy, the regulators of that energy, and how they work together and coexist in harmony to form the spheres, the godly divine attributes, which are the building blocks of the Seder Stalshalos, the order of descent. And the Rebbe explained it's because each one feels what the purpose is, why they came into being in the first place. And because of that, and because they need each other, and they reveal within each other their purpose and their quality, therefore they are able to operate in harmony. This is how Oiros and Kalim combine and bond together. This is also the idea of Yichud Havaya and Elikim, Havaya being the giving force, and Elikim being the withholding force. This is also the going all the way back to Kav and Tzimtzum, the initial contraction of Ein Sof, and the following drawing down of a line of Eir into the Tzimtzum. So all of this is along the same lines, this idea of working together in harmony to form revelation of godliness into the world. And this also manifests itself in Avodas Adam, in man's service of Hashem, in the interaction between the Nefesh Elokis and the Nefesh Abamis, the godly soul and the animal soul. Although they are opposites, nonetheless, the Nefesh Elokis, the godly soul, operates in a way that it clothes itself in the animal soul and works with it and through it. And the reason is because the godly soul feels the unique quality of the animal soul in the sense that because it is so low, it really emanates from something that's very high, that has a very high divine spark within it, from which the godly soul can have benefit if it is successful in lifting the Nefesh Abamis, the animal soul. And the animal soul in turn has ultimately this characteristic of bittul, of submissiveness, and therefore it is able to receive the godly soul's intervention and interaction with it, and that's how they fuse and bond together for man to be able to carry out his Avodas Hashem. Now we go to Ois Daled. Before we go into Ois Daled, I just want to preface that by quoting a pasuk, a verse from the Torah which describes Yaakov Avinu's dream, where he sees the angels. What was his dream? He describes V'hine sulam mutzav arza v'roshei begia shemayma. Behold, there is a ladder that stands on the ground, and its head reaches into the heavens, into the skies. Chassidus explains that this is a metaphor for tefillah, for davening, or avodah, man's service of Hashem, which is highlighted in davening. And in davening, we know that it's Sulam Mutzav Arza, V'roshei Megia Shemayma. And Chassidus explains that this is the idea of the man ascending to get l'chai, to godliness, and forming a bond with God and with godliness. And that is made up of generally two components. There's the Mutzav Arza component, which means to say the part of the ladder which stands on the ground, which denotes man's effort. And once man fulfills or expends his effort to the extent possible, humanly possible, then there is the head that reaches into the heavens, and there's the aspect of which is bestowed upon man from Hashem, from above. That's the metaphor of the ladder. And in the Musaf Arza, we have first the Hoido'ah, Moidan Nilafanecha, the very basic level of Aveda, where we just submit to Hashem. Then we have Psukei de Zimra, the part of davening where we talk about Hashem's greatness and we praise Him and so on and so forth, which talk to the heart, the midas, the emotions of the person, where he becomes excited and emotionally involved with Getlichkeit. Then we reach the level of Kriyas Shema, which is the idea of the Hizbonenus, where we work with the intellect to contemplate the greatness of Hashem. And then we come to Shemona Esrei, which is the idea of Bittul, right? So this is the ladder in ascending order, starting from the very basic levels of the human spiritual anatomy, as it were, going as high as we can, and then Hashem in turn bestowing from above that which we cannot accomplish on our own. So generally speaking, the domain, the realm of the human being, that which the person can reach on his own, is up to seichel, but not beyond, right? What are the koiches and nefesh? The koiches and nefesh, the faculties of the soul. The highest faculty of the soul is the moichin, chochmah, right? So we do that in ascending order. But then there is the aspect which is beyond the moichin. Those faculties, those emanations, those forces which are beyond our intellect, or in other words, beyond our capacity. That's the idea of rotzen, right? Desire. That already has to be bestowed from Hashem. That's the Hashemayma aspect of it, of the ladder. So in the interaction between the godly soul and the animal soul, you have the godly soul working with the animal soul, but to the extent possible, that goes up to the koiches, the ultimate of the koiches pnimim, the highest of the internal faculties, as it were, up to moichin. And then there is that which comes beyond. So this is what the Rebbe addresses in chapter 4. V'hinei. Inyan hanal, the above mentioned matter, which is what? The transformation which the godly soul affects in the animal soul, the kedusha, to holiness. Who inyan hislapshus ha'oris b'kelim. This is the idea of the divine lights clothing themselves in the kelim, in the divine vessels. What does that mean? The nefesh elokis, the godly soul, is like the oiros, like the lights, and the animal soul is like the kelim, like the vessels. V'hainu sha'es hakeches the nefesh elokis, that the 10 faculties of the godly soul mislapshim u'mimalim es hakeches the nefesh abamis, clothe themselves and they fill the faculties of the animal soul. Shenasim mimuloyim, that the faculties of the animal soul become filled. Me'hakeches the nefesh elokis, they become filled with the faculties of the godly soul. But this is all the internal. This is all focused on the internal faculties. But it is known that the ultimate purpose is, the ultimate intention is that one should arrive to the level of the simple desire, which is beyond reason and beyond logic. In other words, beyond the koiches pnimim, to touch even those aspects of the soul that are beyond what we can comprehend internally and relate to it in an internal way. Hainu, what does that mean in the terminology of Eres V'Kelim? The idea is that we should reach a level which is l'mayla mi'eslapshus Eres V'Kelim, beyond that which can, beyond the clothing of the lights, the divine energies into kelim, into the vessels. What does that mean to reach that level which is beyond the clothing of the Eres into the kelim? It doesn't mean that we leave our relationship that we have in terms of the koiches pnimim, the internal faculties. It's not the intention that this level of the simple desire, which is beyond the koiches pnimim, beyond the internal faculties, doesn't mean that we should go beyond that and they should not find expression in the vessels. But rather the intention is that also this simple desire, which is which is innately beyond vessels, beyond clothing itself into vessels, yumshich bekelim, this should also be drawn down into the vessels. Oides bekelim, it should end up being lights within vessels. Ella, what does it mean? But it means that these lights that clothe themselves in kelim, which means the normal order of the operating system, as it were, they should function as it should be, as is dictated by this simple desire, which is beyond logic, beyond reason. And beyond the clothing of these lights into the vessels. But rather they should all function according to what? According to the essential, the atzmistic bond of the neshama with godliness. Right? So in other words, it's like we learned in the previous Maimed, we should be fused not only by those levels of godliness which clothe themselves within the world, by Mamar Atem Nitzavim, but even by Seviv Kalam, even by the levels of godliness which are beyond clothing themselves into wealth. In other words, that the relationship between the Yid and the Eibishter should find expression to such an extent that his essential bond with Hashem, which is beyond logic, but rather it's an atzmistic thing, it's an essential bond, that should find expression in his seichel and in his midas, in his intellect and in his emotional faculties and in his actions, right? Much like somebody who is a connection to the king, is tied to the king to such an extent that he's essentially bound to the king beyond any reason and logic, but that has an effect that he thinks and he uses his intellectual faculties to carry out the king's will, and he uses his emotional and his active faculties also for that purpose. So that's the ultimate purpose, to reach the levels which are beyond the internal faculties of the spiritual anatomy of the soul. But however, the revelation of this level is something which has to come from above. Why? This is not within the power of the person on his own to achieve. A person can make an effort to go as far as he can, as far as humanly possible, which is up until where his effort reaches that which he can accomplish within the internal faculties, up to Meichin, but not beyond. So what happens to those levels that are beyond, that we're discussing here? That's something which needs to be bestowed from above. V'hainu. And this works like as follows. After man does his avodah, does what he can to transform the animal soul to holiness, that the faculties of the animal soul should be filled by the faculties of the godly soul, which is the avodah, the service of Hashem, that each and every individual could reach by his own strength. Then, once we accomplish that to the extent we are able to, then it is bestowed upon him from above this simple desire. In other words, the levels that are beyond the normal order of things. That is bestowed upon him from above. Concerning which it says, I shall give you your priesthood as a service of a gift. Which means to say that it's a gift which is bestowed upon from Hashem to the person. Now the Rebbe goes and explains this further. Before we go further, I want to quote to you a Gemara. The Gemara says in Brochus, Daf Mem Amud Aleph. It says as follows. Rabbi Zayda said, V'itei min Rab Chinan bar Papa. Others say, Rab Chinan bar Papa said, Bayu re'ei, come and see. Shaloi ki midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu midas basav Adam. How the character of the Holy One, blessed be He, Hashem, is not like the character of man, of that of flesh and blood, of man. How are they different? Midas basav Adam, kli reikon machzik, mole eine machzik. The character of man is that an empty vessel is able to is able to be made to hold. In other words, an empty vessel could receive. A full vessel, if the vessel is full, it can't receive. But Midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, however, the character of Hashem is the other way around. Aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu eine kein mole machzik A full vessel could receive, and if it's empty, it can't receive. Shene'emar, as it says in the pasuk in Shmois, Vayomer im shomaya tishma l'kel Hashem l'kecha. If you will listen to the voice of Hashem, and you will do what Hashem wants, etc., etc., the pasuk continues to say the brachas that the person will receive. So Chazal, to make the diuk, it says shomaya tishma twice. If hearing you will hear. Why does it say twice shomaya tishma? So from here we learn that what? If you will listen once, you will listen again. When we talk about Midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you're full of Torah once, you will be full of Torah again. And if not, not. That's the Gemara. The Rebbe over here, I'm running out of time. The Rebbe over here explains it, Beruchnius, in Avodas Hashem, that there are two modes of Avodas Hashem. There's an Avodas Hashem which is Midas Basar Vadam, and there's an Avodas Hashem which is Midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a serving Hashem to the extent humanly possible, as we just said, which generally focuses on the Kochos Pnimiyim, that which a person can do with his internal faculties, with his conscious awareness, up until Meichin, the intellect. And then there is Midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that which is bestowed upon the person from Hashem. Right? Which goes along the lines that we explained over here, the idea of working Hashem, a person carrying out his Avodas Hashem with his Kochos Pnimiyim, with his internal faculties, up until Meichin, that's Midas Basar Adam. And then there is Avodas Matana Eteres Kunaschem, that there is that which Hashem bestows from above. But as we're running out of time, so we'll have to leave it. I'll give you a heads up, there won't be any shiurim until next Friday morning. I'm away until coming back, Mr. Hashem, next Thursday, but I'm coming back too late for this year. So the next year will be, please God, tomorrow a week. All right?